sustainability is more than just marketing. So this session aims to separate fact from fiction and explore how businesses can. So our lovely moderator is AJ Koch, and he's Managing Director of the Startup Daily. So a big round of applause for him and everyone on the panel here today.
All right, welcome, thank you. Ooh, sounds like we're in a concert. I feel like Madonna up here. Thanks for coming by. Very excited to be hosting this panel. My name's AJ from Startup Daily. We've got a fantastic panel today, mainly because I think it's a very diverse mix of people who are coming to this topic from a real variety of points of views. And as we meet them, we'll find out why and dig into some of their insights. But I guess we'd love to start off with introductions. We are talking about a greenwashed world and how fintechs in particular can go about their sustainability strategies without doing it in a superficial marketing-centric way. And it's going to be a fascinating chat that we have very little time to actually dig into the details, so let's get straight in. So I'd love to each of you, starting with you, Tim, to just provide an introduction to yourself, and then we'll come down the row. And also, while you're introducing yourself, give a bit of context about what brings you onto this panel. And it's important to define what we're talking about when we say greenwashing and sustainability. It's not completely clear around what the definitions are. So would love to hear the perspective of each of you around how you see it.
All in an opening remark.
Yes, yes, and all within 20 seconds, please.
So my name's Tim Powell. I work for a company called Dentsu. We're a Japanese-owned global marketing technology company, 72,000 employees around the world. So very different to kind of startup environment. But we're very interested in fintech. We're very interested in sustainability. And I'm also very interested personally in the circular economy. And I'm on the board of an NGO called the Product Stewardship Centre of Excellence. So the whole idea of tracking the life cycle of transaction decisions and what that means is very, very important. And why this panel is really important, if you think about the mission to save our planet, if we want to have a livable planet in 70 years' time, we absolutely have to change investment patterns. We have to change the way B2B transactions are made, and we have to change the way consumers behave. And fintech has a key role in each of those things. So just briefly on greenwashing, we do a lot of reputation work. We've had to defend companies more in the consumer realm that have got themselves into trouble in the way they talk about things. You see it very common in cosmetics, in fast-moving consumer goods, less so in financial services. But to AJ's question, what's greenwashing? Well, it doesn't matter what I think, it matters what ASIC thinks. They prosecuted nearly 50 firms in the last 15 months, doled out corrections orders and big fines. And Mercer Superannuation fined close to $11 million. So the ASIC definition of did the consumer's investment meet their expectations of a green performance? If that's what the claim is, that's what matters. And if ASIC don't get you, the ACCC will, because they have a definition around false and misleading claims.
Fantastic. Dr. Laura, over to you.
Hi everyone. Sorry for those hidden after back then. So my name is Laura Russo. I'm from Lensel, which is a research-driven investment technology platform. So we build technology for investors and investment professionals to help them make better decisions. And that's not just on the financial side. So we build portfolio management for portfolio analytics, but also on sustainability side, we have an application which allows everyone, not just investors, but investors in this context, to see the real pollution and carbon emissions from their investments. Because all this data is available, it was a bit hidden, so we want to make it visible to people to improve transparency. So it will help with what Tim said about making the decision if my investments are really green or not. So from my perspective, greenwashing is everything that's not really factual. So if you just say something and hide your real impact behind some nice numbers about how many paper cups you use, but maybe you pollute a lot. So in my opinion, has to match the reality with what you say. If it's marketing or just, investment relations or whatever, other communication. So from a technology perspective and fintech, I think we can do a lot in first improving awareness, showing people what really happens, and then maybe also helping companies to report better, to communicate that better to investors. So yeah, everything can be done. Technology is there, data is there, so we can help making things smoother.
Fantastic. You, Janet?
All right, yep, I'm Janet. I'm co-founder of Footprint Lab. We provide ESG data to fintechs so that they can do ESG accounting, cheap, easy, and with existing workflows. So for me, it's like if your spouse, if you have one, if they said, "Oh, get me something healthy from the takeaway place and give me a healthy drink," and the takeaway place says, "Okay, well we've got this organic spirulina shake. You want that?" Well, it's very good. It's like organic and spirulina. And so you bring it, but the reality is this shake is full of ice cream and trans fats and sugar and, all other things. But yes, it did have organic spirulina in it. But did it make it a healthy drink? Nah. So that is sort of like a health equivalent of greenwashing. And that's what we see a lot, what we have seen in the past. A company will do something that's green, legitimately green, but the reality is it's overshadowed by, it's not mainstreamed, it's not core to their strategy, and it's often managed by the marketing team. And the reason fintechs are so critical is because they know all the ingredients in the smoothie. They're across all payments, all accounting, everything in the general ledger, not just the thing that's been highlighted as green. And so our role in that, I guess, is we would tell fintechs the kind of calories per dollar or, nutrients per dollar. We've got a whole list of different metrics, and then they carry on looking at different, recipes of expenditures. Yep.
Fantastic. And Brody?
Thank you very much. So I'm Brody Hapt. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Wealth. We are a digital lending and payments fintech and are now Australia's first certified impact lender. So what does that mean? We put our purpose over profit and have built in our impact into every part of our business, every revenue line that we have. Greenwashing to us really is around making sure that it's marketing with real measurable impact that you can create as a business. And I'm really excited today just to sort of talk about what that means and help other businesses and people in the industry sort of navigate that.
Brilliant. So hopefully now you can see why I think it's a fantastic mix of perspectives on this panel. We have Tim, who's coming from a very kind of advisory role and seeing the broader market and the landscape. Dr. Laura and Lencel, who are really looking at how the data and measurement is impacting and materialising for business. Janet and Footprint Labs, they're really at the forefront of the measurement, the performance, accountability side of things and from a data point of view. And then Brody with Wealth, who are just a fantastic use case of in the real world, how sustainability and ESG is deeply embedded in a real business operating day to day. So each will come with very different perspectives. I think in this session, it'd be great fun to just pour shit on all the companies who are doing a bad job of it and make fun of them and their greenwashing, but we don't have enough time for that. I think this should be a really practical session for fintechs in the room of how they can start putting some good practices into place. So on that note, I'd love to start off with looking at the different phases or stages of going about embedding ESG and sustainability into a business. When we were talking previously, it was interesting to get the insights from you, Janet, to start with of, it's not something that a company can just implement overnight. There's a journey towards becoming truly sustainability-led. How do you see it kind of playing out for a fintech who might be starting from scratch?
Yeah, there's some companies like Wealth where the sustainability is part of the value proposition from day one and it's built strategically. But for most companies, it's a journey. So I also don't like to criticise companies that are greenwashing. I'll leave that to ASIC and ACCC. But because often it's a sort of a well-meaning, it's been initiated by well-meaning, probably middle management, someone that wanted to do something but didn't have the seniority to go very, into the heart of the DNA, and then, they'll just regret that they did anything at all. But the general ladder is, the first thing companies do is CSR. It's got nothing to do with our business core value proposition, but we might, support some schools.
Corporate social responsibility.
Corporate social responsibility, yep. We'll do some good things or charitable contributions. The second thing they might do is green their internal operations. So again, it's not part of their products or services that are going externally, but they might start to use green energy, go paperless where they can, sustainable uniforms, etc. Then the next step would be to measure and disclose. And for that, you actually don't need to do anything green. All you're doing is measuring and disclosing, which already, makes it a lot easier for other people to understand, whether they want to buy your goods and services. The next one is to start to introduce a green product, like an Apple Watch. There's a carbon neutral Apple Watch. There's the lowest carbon Nike sneakers. So it's like 1 or 2 product lines go green. And then I guess the peak of it is something more like Patagonia, or, it's a company where they've embedded sustainability into the core value proposition. So they're all about, circular fashion. They make revenue from repair, refurbishment. So they're not just making money from getting clothes out the door. They'll make money by doing things sustainably.
So based on that, Brodie, bringing that into a real world implementation, did you guys evolved from some different businesses as well to the current Wealth brand. Did you guys have this built in from day one, or did you follow a kind of sequential process like Janet was sort of describing? How did it come about for Wealth?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's kind of like Pandora's box a little bit. We started out with Wealth, with the ideation phase, saying, look, let's build a business that is, really and truly at the heart of the DNA, built around purpose. And we looked around and, took months and months of ideation to land on, look, we're Australia, we're an island country, we're girt by sea, everyone has an affinity with the oceans. So let's try and see if we can solve the ocean and marine plastic crisis. And for us, it was about, okay, how do we get into that world? What can we do as a fintech? How do you join the mechanics of it from a marketing, a perception, a give back, measurable impact? So we went down the journey, and I've got someone here today who was involved in it, of saying, let's build a card first and foremost. So a Visa card which can be made of 100% recycled ocean plastic. And that journey in itself was a very, very long process, over 18 months, speaking with every card manufacturer on the planet, and also every sort of ocean plastic provider, NGO, organisation. And we were almost about to sort of give up to a level and just go back to the drawing board and just say, look, we'll just do virtual cards and sort of wait for the world to catch up. And we spoke with Giuseppe and Devront, who are based out of Germany but also operate in Australia, and they were like, look, we're dealing with a plastic supplier and we can't tell you who it is. And we said, if it's Parley for the Oceans, they're on a whiteboard in the office, we would love to partner with them. For those of you that don't know, they're probably most famous for the bringing the ocean plastic and turning it into luxury goods. So they partner with Adidas. So Run for the Oceans campaign, all your Adidas shoes, apparel, bags, everything generally has some form of Parley ocean plastic in place. So that was sort of the first part. Fast forward, we now have the world's first fully 100% Parley ocean Convego plastic card in the market, Visa card, and we won an award in London in 2021 for, which is quite funny, the most authentic ESG under a multi-stakeholder partnership to bring that card to market. Why that's funny? Because they had to put the word authentic in front of ESG, which is a bit of a spin out. For us, what that sort of led to was to then say, how do we then tie back this symbol, because it's still plastic, right? It kind of makes sense when you really think about it. We're creating a plastic card and putting it in market, but it's not virgin plastic. So for us, it was every loan that we settle, which is our first sort of lead product in market was property secured lending, that we would offset 50 square metres of Australian coastline and beach cleanup, and we would go do that with Parlay for the Oceans, with our team, key stakeholders, brokers, ambassadors, customers, which has been great. So we've done 8 so far to date over the last 3 years. And it's about just educating our customers, educating our clients. The journey for even the card itself, like we went through, let's build the packaging and make sure that we use plant-based inks, have no plastic polymers in the glue, make sure that the card was fully recycled plastic. And that journey itself was just crazy. It's sort of 6x the cost to get that to market than a traditional sort of bank card. But when you can build it into the mechanics of the business from day one, it definitely makes a difference. So yeah, that's the first part. From like an operational perspective, and where a lot of fintechs and other businesses we speak to start, is around what they can do within the workplace. So it's getting rid of plastic cups, or banning single-use plastic in their office, and then you start looking at what can we do to be involved in community organised events, and how can we engage our key stakeholders or our staff. And for sort of my own experience, it's really come down to what it helped build for us in the early stages was culture within the business and the ability to attract talent. We didn't realise how powerful, probably underestimated how powerful it was to have that within our business, to be able to attract talent, particularly in COVID when we launched our business, to bring people in that had a shared vision, understood, can create that connection. And the biggest feedback we had was that real and measurable impact is sort of what sort of resonated with them.
Tim, I'd be interested to get your thoughts on the external perception. Obviously, there's, like you mentioned, there's regulatory frameworks for not overstating or making claims that aren't true. But when it comes to a customer base and a public perception, and from the background of communications and PR, when not every business can, like Wealth, genuinely put purpose over profit, but that not every business has to, can still be a profitable commercial business, but have elements of sustainability built in. At what point do you get the right to talk about it and use that in your marketing and really fly the flag? Because in the end, some people do it for a commercial reason. It can be very beneficial to the brand. At what point does it go from being sort of inauthentic to having the right to talk about it? And does it matter what people think about you too much if you inherently are doing the right thing? And that perception, seems like a very tight rope to walk.
Yes and no. Think about sustainability as a value chain. It's not one thing, and it's not just about greenhouse gas emission reductions. Of course, that's very, very important. If we get on top of that, that's a cool thing. I think it's really interesting to look at the panel and think about that value chain. So if we think about, we need investors to be putting their money in true green projects that reduce emissions, that make the planet more sustainable. That's what Laura's business does. It rates portfolios, it educates investors, it should give them transparency. If you then think about businesses investing in their supply chain, making good decisions about what they consume, what the footprint of the goods and services they consume, that's Janet's business. Sorry, I am shortlisting the very complex natures of your business, but I'm getting around to answering AJ's question. If you look at Brodie's business, it's about engaging consumers. It's about getting consumers interested in making decisions that reduce their carbon footprint and reduce waste on the planet. So there's not one sort of audience to all those skill sets. A lot of what FinTech does, of course, is sell a service into other bigger businesses to help them make good decisions, help them understand their businesses and their supply chains. So I think as long as your businesses have strong data behind them, and that's what Janet's business is about, and Laura's as well, is as long as you've got the data to back up your claims, it's all right to fly your flag. And you should fly your flag. But I think there's a tonality in the way that you do it. And maybe I'm being a bit over dramatic here, but the mission to save the planet is very, very real. And I think a lot of NGOs, it's not just the government that gets on your case, the NGOs will shoot you down in flames as well. We don't want to overstate what we've got to contribute, but we shouldn't understate it either, depending on where you sit in that value chain and what your business is.
Very good advice. So, Laura, it's been mentioned a couple of times, sort of alluding to the unique position that fintechs actually play in the broader role of sustainability. Do you want to talk to what is an advantage of being a fintech and almost the opportunity you have to influence different sectors from customer bases to investors to corporate sectors?
Yeah, so being a fintech means, tech part of fintech, being technology. We have access to a lot of data. Some of it is quite, hidden. And just as a bit of background, I stumbled across this pollution visualizer from a course I did before COVID, and the professor of corporate finance mentioned, we have a lot of data about pollution in National Pollution Inventory and other places, but people are not aware. So at that time I thought, well, why not building something which makes people aware? And then from there it grew into a bigger product and platform. The idea being, with technology, we can influence different, like you said, different stakeholders. We can change, just regular citizens' perception about pollution and about businesses and how economy works in general. We can influence how government and us can oversee the economy and the businesses and industries who's more polluting, where they should maybe take some measures and legislation or whatever. And we can influence investors, of course, who want to put money in sustainable investments. And as you mentioned, it doesn't mean that if you are sustainable or you take measures to be sustainable, you need to be unprofitable. It's just a matter of helping people see what's that impact and what's the financial performance. They will make a decision based on their own preferences. Some people don't care a lot about these ESG factors, but some people do care a lot. So with technology, we can influence different stakeholders. And the idea is all fintechs can have a role, make a contribution. Like Tim mentioned, we are at different stages in the supply chain, either very data-driven, like Janet's business, or as an awareness tool like we have, or real products which are sustainable. But I think with technology we can improve many of this, at least awareness, and then we can help companies do a better job of reporting and disclosing. And on that note, Janet mentioned earlier about the reporting and disclosing step in their journey. But disclosing is a tricky thing, because you, as a business, you should choose to disclose. You should disclose everything, not choose to disclose just certain bits. And I think it ties up into the topic title. If we just show a bit of what we are doing well, or if we show everything we're doing well, or everything we are not doing so well. So it's probably a matter of being truthful from a business perspective, rather than just highlighting what we like to show.
Yeah, Jenny, you mentioned briefly before, but be interested to dive in a bit deeper into that element of how a fintech, based on the data that we have and knowledge across a customer base, how we can leverage that and kind of enable or facilitate customers to go about or change their approach to their own sustainability. Because to be honest, when I approached this topic, I was thinking more about the actual business themselves and what practices we can put in, but then you guys on the panel mentioned a couple of times that fintechs have a role to play in terms of facilitating, enabling consumers to have their own impact as well. But how does that come into practice?
I think for a FinTech festival or for a FinTech conference, the key message of this session is that FinTechs are enablers for their users, right? So you should definitely try to be sustainable yourselves, but it's probably going to have a much bigger impact if you help your clients become green, authentically green and sustainable. So our job is to make it easy for you guys to do that for your clients. So what we do, we work with universities to convert the trillions of numbers that they have. Like Laura mentioned, there is so much data out there. We've had it for ages, but we needed to convert it into a per dollar number and categorise it in the way that fintechs categorise business activity data. So we provide, for instance, the carbon footprint per dollar of a given ANZIC class or a merchant category code class or whatever classification you're using, and a different one for every country and a different one for every year. So if you're a fintech that knows the merchant category code, the country, the year, and the amount of money, you can do carbon accounting, and you can do land footprint accounting and water footprint accounting. We've got a whole list of measures. So it's that easy. We just provide that via an API and, you know, work with the university to keep that flowing. And that's the same data that's used, it's been used a long time in public policy. Lots of wonderful ESG reports that I'm sure everyone reads. I think there was some that no one had read, but it also goes into the government's certification programs. So why not just embed it into workflows that are already touching huge amounts of the global economy? And that way, you know, there's everyone, whether they're, you know, investing or lending or spending or insuring, they should know the carbon footprint behind that they're supporting. And if they're doing something good, if someone's doing something good, they need to have visibility. You know, there's no point in doing something better, especially if there's a premium or you're taking a hit and it's not a requirement. But if your downstream customers don't know about it or they can't see it in their financial reports, then you sort of wonder whether it's worth doing at all. But you know, the way it's going in the future, there will be digital product passports. So this data will be very transparent, more and more every year. And that's where I think fintechs come in, because you're already touching a lot of financial data, and it's much better if you guys layer in environmental data than environmentalists try to make an app. Like, no one wants to use a carbon calculator that's been made by an environmentalist. They've been around for a couple of decades already. No impact. So, you know, I think this is for the fintech community to, you know, save us.
It'd be interesting to think about how to bring this to life within a business. We have new reporting requirements coming up, I think, from January 1. There's a lot we can be doing, obviously, but prioritising that within a business that realistically might have 5, 10, 30, 50 people who have a laundry list of things they have to do, and there's different ways for a brand to have a point of difference and stand out. A sustainability message, however deeply integrated, might be one of many. Tim, from your perspective, with that regulatory piece as well as just an overall business prioritisation and an overall strategy, how do you think someone should go about prioritising or balancing along with other things, the other million things that a fintech has to do when building?
It's a bit of a difficult one for me to answer. I'll just give you an analogy. Whether it's relevant to fintechs, we'll find out. So because I'm involved in this Product Stewardship Centre of Excellence, it's kind of a philosophy of how you approach a business or an industry, which is you want to reduce consumption, reduce resource use, you want to design for repair and reusability, and recycling is the last resort. It is the recipe for a circular economy. So that's the way we tend to approach problem solving and strategy planning for clients around sustainability, is through that lens. Is that appropriate for a fintech? Probably not. And this is where my knowledge probably falls short, so I won't talk for long, because I think it's really up to the three fintechs on the panel to answer that question from their perspective. Okay.
Brody, how do you go about that internally? And actually, I'd love to sort of add on to that, is what do you do, or how do you manage the team to get the buy-in, and if you do have any roadblocks with people who just maybe aren't as passionate as the people leading the business?
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't think there's a right or wrong answer, in my opinion. I would just say, for any business out there that's looking to make a start in the ESG world or CSR space, is to have a think about something that's genuine, like that you're genuinely interested in, that you can lead with passion and get your team to buy in and follow you. That's the only way that can work. If you think that you're going to start some form of purpose-led initiative to try and attract investors, forget it. I've sat in front of hundreds of investors over the last 4 years, and probably the most common thing they say about our purpose-led thing is, that's cute. That's a nice to have, which is the reality. It's an unfortunate reality, but we have a responsibility, and we take our responsibility very seriously in what we're trying to do. We're not perfect. We're still learning. We're always going to adapt and evolve. The thing I would also say is to use AI. Like, just go prompt AI and say, hey, I'm interested in this. I'm trying to think of an idea with purpose in my business. I'm trying to do a company retreat. My life depends on it. I'm not sure if you've seen any of those AI prompts, but if you're a bit cheeky with it, then usually you get a better answer. So.
All right, we are very quickly out of time. So before we get kicked off, would love just a final kind of thought or from each of you, just looking into next year. We're almost somehow at the end of the year. 2025, this type of messaging is going to obviously become more and more important and critical for operating a business. What would be sort of the lasting thought or piece of wisdom you'd want to share with the FinTech audience in terms of practicality, how they can implement something to have real action?
Can I go first? The mission's absolutely critical. We're in 2025 next year. Governments around the world have made promises around achieving targets by 2030. We're not going to get there. We need fintechs to get on board, because the number one thing we need is investor confidence. We cannot have greenwashing sully the decisions of investment managers around the world about where they're going to put their money, because we need trillions and trillions of dollars to shift into renewables, into changing the way that we consume and govern our lives. So my message is, fintechs, get on board, look into your business model and think about the role you can play for your customers and find new business opportunities.
From our perspective, we want to start, what we do now, start from like grassroots, increase awareness of people, of investors. They will make, put some pressure on the businesses. The businesses will have to make changes. They will have to improve their technologies. They will have to report better. So it's, I think, bottom up for us.
Yeah. For me, every one of you, your carbon footprint is measured, whether you like it or not, in all these apps, based on your category. So my suggestion is know the carbon footprint per dollar of your services and know how that compares to the number that would be there by default in all these apps. If you don't know it, you can connect with me, tell me your ANZIC class or your MCC or whatever, and I'll tell you quietly, okay, it's 500 grams per dollar. If you are lower, advertise it. Make it clear, especially if you're going for public procurement or institutional procurement, where that would be a differentiator. So you never know, you might actually be greener than your sector without even knowing it. So get it measured. Yeah. And maybe also just on the thing where to start, I would say go for the ikigai. What are you good at? What does the world need? What can you get paid for? This is, as businesses, I think, don't do something you're not good at. Do what you're good at and just add the thing.
Don't try and do too much and
do what you're good at,
solve the entire world's problems.
Add in the environment stuff.
I would just say collaborate. So just try and find different people or organisations that you can collaborate with to try and bring your idea or vision to life.
What would you do?
There's no time for my answer. Yeah. Thank you so much to the panel. Round of applause, please, for Brodie, Janet, Laura and Tim. Hope you enjoyed it. Back to you guys.